Welcome to the Health Revolution, and tonight I'm very pleased to be joined by Lillianne, who has a very interesting story to tell. And without further ado, and me spoiling the story, I'm going to go straight to Lillianne. Tell us, Lillianne, when did you first realise that your health wasn't performing as well as it used to?
I would say really I'd been on the largest amount of medication I came to. It took, I would say, maybe just under a year before I actually started to feel there's something radically wrong here. I'm actually, not getting better. It's not keeping my pain levels under control. And then everything else started to happen where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, all sorts of problems.
What was the first reason you went to a doctor initially?
Basically, it was pain. I mean, all this really it goes way back to when I was around 17. I had a problem with my left knee. I was running for a bus, and the feeling I got was like an elastic band had gone twang in my knee. And it kind of felt there was no feeling around it, and I went to the hospital to the walking casualty. Nobody ever really got to the bottom of it. It did. It kind of wore off after a few months, and then came back again when I was a bit older and pregnant. Obviously, carrying the extra weight of a baby. But I was told when I was about 22 that there was actually no cartilage left in my left knee. I was put on a drug called Indocid. I gave that maybe 2 or 3 months, and I didn't feel any difference whatsoever. Then they put me on an additional drug to that. I can't remember the name of it, similar to today's Voltarol. Again, no difference, so I stopped taking that. And then unfortunately, it was around about, I think I was about 40, and I was dusting and I fell off a chair, and I heard both cracks. I broke 2 metatarsals, 3rd and 4th, in my right foot. Cut a long story short, was put into plaster, went back to have it removed 3 weeks later to have a new plaster on. But I was told that it was fine and I could go, and the guy didn't seem able to put other than that into a sentence. You are fine, you can go. And I said, but I'm in pain, I can't put my foot on the floor. Look at the sweat. You're fine, you can go. So off I trotted. Several times I went to the doctor and kept saying, look, every time I put my foot to the floor, I'm in agony. And I kept being told it would settle down in time. These things take time. And I actually, at one time, I was in Edinburgh, and we walked the whole length of Princes Street and went in every shoe shop, and I could not find a pair of anything, any sort of footwear that would fit over my right foot. Eventually, they decided that, yes, we'll have it x-rayed. And they found that for 3 years, I'd been walking around on one of the metatarsals that hadn't healed. I've actually had 2 attempts with bone grafts from my hip to put that right. Both times it failed. They've done it now a 3rd time. I don't know. So far, it's okay. I've had something injected into it, bone metabolic protein. So far, it's working okay. But the problem is that in all the time it's taken to get this sorted, the impact I feel that it had on the rest of my body is what brought me to where I was needing both knees replaced. I've had both knees replaced. The first one was about 10 years ago, so that's coming up for replacement. The last one I had was last year. That was on my right knee. But I'm looking now more towards the nutrition and the supplements I'm taking, that maybe at some point I'll be able to say, well, I don't actually need that right hip replacement that they're talking about now. And this is the impact of walking on crutches for 17 months. I am absolutely positive, because you're not holding yourself properly. I knew this, and I couldn't stand straight. And I just gradually went downhill from then on. I wasn't getting out and about. I became even more depressed. I'd been on antidepressants since 1993. Kept wondering, why am I not feeling any better? And in actual fact, I'm feeling worse. And then we kind of thought, well, maybe it's because if you weren't on the antidepressants, you'd be a lot worse. So just be thankful for the fact you don't feel as bad as you could feel. That was the kind of logic. But I must say that very, very quickly, from beginning to actually cut down the dose of the antidepressant alone, I found the clarity that I got back in my head was just tremendous. I felt part of the family again. I was making decisions for myself. I was, I don't know, I just felt myself getting the will to live back again. And it's incredible. And I've gradually, over the months, I've been cutting down bit by bit, and I've now got to a point where I'm only on one drug, and I'm cutting that down bit by bit. This is a fentanyl patch that's it's an opiate. I think it's usually given to cancer patients, and I'm supposed to be on 125 micrograms an hour, and I've got that down to about 70 micrograms an hour. I'm not saying I'm always pain-free and that I've had a miraculous cure, but from where I was in March to where I am today, if this is the best I ever got, I'd be happy as Larry. I really would, because this is phenomenal.
So how bad did it get? How desperate were you feeling?
I was feeling that desperate that when it used to get light in the morning, I was at a stage where I was weeping, because here was another day and I just had enough, basically. When you become that detached from what's going on around you, your family, you're supposed to be the matriarch of the family, and you're having no involvement whatsoever. You can see the strain you're putting on the rest of the family. You can see the effect all this is having. And then the thoughts along the lines of, they would be far better off without me in the equation, because I am this problem, I am that problem. And it doesn't take long, really, before, you really start to become convinced that this is actually just let it happen. And as I say, I honestly feel that what done it for me was the antidepressant. I lost that mindset as soon as I came off that antidepressant. I lost that mindset. And I would almost say, to the extent where I think that was almost making me have suicidal tendencies. And that's quite a strong statement to make. But I feel that I have the right to make that statement, because, I haven't gone through medical school, and I haven't written papers. And I'm just a mother and a grandmother that's physically been through the mill, and I've come round through it the other side, and I think I'm well justified to actually say what I think has been the cause and the effect of what I've been through.
So you were taking quite a few medications.
I was taking a lot of medications.
Why didn't you show us what you were taking?
As I did say earlier, each time I look in this bag, it's shocking to think that I used to ingest this on a monthly basis.
So there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Absolutely. I've got bottles of Oromorph here. This is liquid morphine, 10 milligrams in a 5 ml spoonful. In the end, I was actually just... Well, to be honest with you, when I had this knee replaced, I was told that I'd been discharged, and because I was waiting for an ambulance, I was entitled to no more medication from them. and they'd given me a bag to take home, as they do. And I found myself sitting on my hospital bed with a bottle of this open, just glugging it out the bottle, because there was no syringe in there to squib it into your mouth. And the nurses were quite happily just walking past watching me do this. That's another story. But I mean, you know, some of these drugs were given to me because of the side effects of some of the other drugs that I was on. One of these amongst here is actually a drug that dries up all the moisture, because I happened to mention that I was getting up maybe 4 or 5 times in the night to go for a wee. That's all I said. And it's, we've got something that can sort that. Right. And yes, it worked. But then I found that if I was talking to anybody, that my mouth would just dry up. My eyes were dry. My nose was dry. And then I think, now I know. What the hell was that doing to my brain? So I kind of think, yeah, looking back, you look at all this stuff, I mean, this one here, gabapentin, this originally was for people with epileptic fits, and now they give it to people with fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia, again, what is fibromyalgia? Where the hell did that come from? That wasn't around when I was in my teens.
Well, you know, fibromyalgia is touted as if it were a disease,
Yeah.
but fibromyalgia means multiple muscle pains.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's not something you catch.
No, this is it. But you see, all along, all I ever wanted was someone to find out what was causing my pain. But all anybody ever seemed to want to do was give me something to help the pain. And, you know, I've in one particular practice, you know, I've had one doctor who said to me that this stuff, when I explained to him that after 3 or 4 days I begin to feel detached and confused, he actually said to me, oh, you'll be fine after the 4th, 5th day, that all goes, so just carry on and you can up the dose if necessary. Now, the thing is, Clive, I know for a fact that if I'd have taken that guy's advice, I wouldn't have even made it till this Christmas just gone, let alone the one coming. And yet another doctor in the same practice, a lady doctor, actually spoke to me and said that I told her that the pain in the base of my spine had got a lot worse recently, and she actually sat there and said that she was concerned about giving me any further medication, upping any doses, because she said that the only way is up, and you're 55 and you know what this is going to do, don't you? And I said, yes, I do. And I was absolutely elated to walk out of that surgery, and I'd been able to say I've got worse pain than usual, and I didn't walk out with extra medication. I thought this was fantastic, you know, and you know, I'm not totally dissing the NHS. I mean, the guys that have looked after me in the orthopedics department, you know, I've been with them nearly 15 years, and they have done their level best to keep me on my feet. But unfortunately, your treatment doesn't begin and end with a consultant. It's once you get onto the ward that the problems begin. And I have seen quite drastic changes from, say, when I first went in to have this knee replaced, to going in last year to have this one done. My husband was bluntly told, looked in the eye and bluntly told by a staff nurse that your GP pays for 2 nights. Who's going to pay for the extra night? Huh? In his face. And this was because I'd refused to have this spinal pain thing during the surgery because I already had sacroiliac joint pain. I said, no, I'd rather not have that. But because of complications, I sort of came round, and they injected this stuff anyway into me, and my leg actually went completely dead after I'd had the surgery, not during the surgery, but they still wanted to throw me out around 4:30 the following day on the Friday. And my bathroom hadn't even been done properly. I had people in fit in a wet room, and the footings weren't even done, and they were assuring me I'd be fine. They brought 3 or 4 different styles of commodes onto the ward during visiting time that Friday night. All they wanted to do was get me out of the building. And, you know, I had to leave my dignity and my modesty at the door this time when I went in and collect what was left of it on the way out. So, you know, if I didn't have to go in hospital again for anything, that would be to me like winning the lottery. I'm probably I probably will have to go back and have further surgery, but I'm armed now with what I know is good for me, and I know how to prepare myself, keep my immune system as good as I can before, and then pick up again after surgery. And these are things I didn't know about before. I had no idea that these drugs mashed you up like this.
So you got to the stage pretty much where you were, in bed most of the time and using a wheelchair?
Yes, when I did go out, I was in a wheelchair. That's impacted on my husband's back, bless him. I couldn't get up and down out of a chair on my own. I couldn't get in and out of bed on my own. It was getting to the stage where I was thinking, I don't want to come to a point where I'm asking him to help me on and off the toilet. And that was amongst the thoughts I was having when I made the decision, where I thought, I've had enough. I'm not, I'm just going to just bow out gracefully, because I didn't want to get to that point, neither for myself or for my husband. So, I did actually come to a decision that I had had enough. But I also need to say that I had a change of heart. I suddenly realised how it would make my family feel if I wasn't around anymore. And it was half panic and half I don't know what. And I kind of decided I had to do something about it. And I'd heard about you through the UK column. And that's when I decided to get in touch. And, the help that I've had and the guidance, and now I feel able to almost research things myself, and I still feel the need to run things, to get like a seal of approval. But I feel now I'm on the right track. I'm picking up snippets of information all the time now. Registering with Mercola and people like that online. So I'm constantly getting things on emails, and I think, if everybody, can take on board that there is an alternative to walking out of the doctor's surgery with a piece of paper thinking that it's going to make you better. There are drugs out there that I would suggest short term can be very, very helpful. But to be left languishing for years and years on medication, it's a recipe for disaster. It's a no-brainer, really, when you just look at this lot. And I would say there's a third of these that are actually to counteract the side effects of the other 2/3, which is incredible. And
so how close do you think you were to dying at that point?
I was very close. I had actually stopped eating for a couple of months, but I was drinking fluids and I was drinking cans of nourishment. That was keeping me going. But then it kind of got to the stage where when I ate, I was sick. And then it got to the stage that I couldn't actually get it down, never mind keep it down. So then it was just liquids. That's when things began to get a little bit sinister for me, because I knew what was happening, and I didn't actually quite know what to do about it. At that point in time, I really didn't think I had a choice. I'm not a stupid woman. I've just been a very busy woman, and I've had a lot to deal with. So I haven't had the time, or the wherewithal to have had opportunities to look into all this before now. And it's kind of just mad that it took for me to get to the verge before I have a learning curve and find out that there's an alternative way, But it's worked. Maybe I needed this for me to, for it to be a trigger for me to do something, because, I'd already kind of, I'd made decisions and, about who I wanted to have what and what I was going to say to the family. It was all there in my head, and I was going to write letters. It was all there. And I mean, my doctors weren't even aware, because, it's just a case of order your prescription online and then you go and pick it up. And, I mean, at one point, actually, I did have a doctor out. It was just before last Christmas, and she was so angry with me because she had a death to attend. I've had to come here and I have a death to attend. And now, at the time I thought, what a strange thing to say, but now I think, well, maybe they get paid for that.
Well, they do.
But it just seemed, it was so bizarre. I called the doctor because I was and I really was poorly. And yet she was very, very angry that she'd been called away from attending to this death. But there you have it. And I just would suggest to everybody to look for an alternative. If you've got a particular ailment, is Google it, because it is there, isn't it?
All the answers are on Google, on the front page of Google.
Yeah.
All the answers, anything you need, you put in any problem you've got and the words natural cure, and you'll find the natural cure. It's as simple as that. So we spoke for an hour or so on Skype, and I recommended one or two things to you. And of those things, what do you think made the difference, and how quickly? How many days did it take?
The fulvic minerals, definitely. I felt that immediately. I really did feel that immediately. It was. How can I describe it? It was like I don't know, some kind of vitamin boost. It felt like I'd had some kind of a tonic. I felt that within minutes, actually. I wouldn't say I was jumping around the room, but I did feel alert, and I felt positive for the first time in a long time. I actually felt positive. I mean, I would say mentally, for 20 years on the same antidepressant, and I was on the highest dose as well, the 60 milligrams. To start on the highest dose, I mean, I would have thought start on the low dose and work your way up if necessary, but it was. And it was one particular doctor said, maybe we could try you on 40 and, see how you go. And I was fine then on the 40, but, I would never have thought I could get off any of these. I mean, there was one of these in particular, the Ramipril, which is for high blood pressure. I happened to say, oh, how long will I have to take these? And the doctor said, oh, you'll be on these for the rest of your life. Well, when my Lugol's iodine arrived, the day I started to use the Lugol's iodine was the day I stopped taking the blood pressure medication. And with the use of a blood pressure machine that I have at home, my blood pressure's constantly fine. What they would say is perfectly okay. So I proved that one wrong, didn't I? So, it's a no-brainer, really. Just go and look. You have got a choice. These guys in the white coats, they're not the gods we think they are. They only know what they're taught, and they're only taught what someone else has been taught. And it's just all written on bits of paper. There are other ways. And it's to say that you don't need the pharmaceutical drugs is in no way being unkind to doctors. Doctors do the best they can with the tools they have. Unfortunately, they're not being taught. I don't think, my personal opinion is they're not being taught enough about the nutritional side of things. It's just about surgery and drugs to suit different ailments, and there's got to be a better way. And I really believe I'm on the right road now. And I'm by no means 100%. I know that. I've got I'm not disillusioned at all in that. I've got a long way to go. But the fact of the matter is, Clive, that the last time I was able to prepare for, be part of, and enjoy Christmas or New Year was in 2009. I spent the last 3 Christmases in bed, not just Christmas, but from around the end of October through to probably the end of January on each of those 3 years. I was actually mostly in bed, other than to go to like a hospital appointment or a dental appointment, and even then sometimes I had to cancel because I was just too weak. I couldn't, to be able to get out of bed, get to the bathroom, have a shower, get dressed. It was just too much. It was just too much to do. I just couldn't deal with it anymore, And it's no wonder. I mean, it's lovely just to be able to wake up every morning now and not feel the way I used to feel sad and, oh God, not another day to go through. When's it going to end? I mean, that's how I had got, when is it going to end? I even remember looking at a photo of my grandmother on the wall. It's one of these old sepia photos, very, very old. And I'm looking at her, and I know she had a very long, slow passing. And, you know, this old Scottish woman, she's looking down on me, and I'm looking at her and thinking, I wonder how long it took for you to go. I wonder what was going through your mind. I bet it's exactly the same as what I'm thinking. What do you think of me for feeling like this? And when you get that close emotionally, having those sort of thoughts, and then, you know, a matter of months later, I'm sitting here talking to you at this time of night. I mean, I'm usually tucked up in bed at this time of night anyway. But, you know, it's just says it all. I've been able to come down here and sit and chat with you and hopefully let people know that, you know, here I am and it's worked. And if it's worked for me, it can work for anybody, I'm sure. Because when I first got in touch with you, I'm not saying I was sceptical, Clive, but I thought, you know, this is going to be almost virtually impossible for anybody to help me at this stage. I really did think that it was too late.
So let's examine what the solutions were. That you started taking fulvic minerals.
Fulvic minerals, the MMS.
The MSM, which is sulfur.
Yes. Celtic salt.
Yeah, the Celtic salt obviously is vital to everybody.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Zinc and copper. Mm-hmm. Which I'm still, I mean, all of the things that I started on, I'm still taking now, but I've added other things in. You know, I've bought the ozone machine, the coconut oil. I can't sing the praises of that coconut oil enough. I slap it on all over, and I mean all over. I'm gargling with it, cooking with it, greasing hinges at home with it.
It's multi-purpose, clearly.
It is. It's absolutely marvellous stuff, you know, and I do actually like it off the spoon. And, you know, at one time, you know, if you were using fats to cook, the last thing I would ever have done would be to run my fingers over the end of the knife or the fork or whatever and then eat it. But I would never dream of doing anything other than that with the coconut oil. You just would never run that down the sink under the tap. No way. It's just absolutely beautiful stuff. And I make chocolates with it now. I've been, you know, using your raw chocolate and coconut oil, coconut butter, some peppermint oil, the good quality stuff. And it's amazing. Mashed bananas and all sorts of things. The mushrooms as well, the chaga mushrooms. I like that. The family like it all as well. I mean, I'm giving all this to the family now as well.
And how about the magnesium? Did you notice
the magnesium is fantastic, Clive. I suffered for nearly 15 years with, I've never heard the term down here, but up in Scotland it's known as restless leg syndrome. And I used to read so many ailments to do with this in the Scottish Sunday Post. My folks used to send down to me after they'd read it, and it was always about restless leg syndrome. And this doctor that used to reply, he always did say magnesium. And I tried to get milk of magnesia because I thought that's what it meant, but I've found that even that now you can't get. You know, the little blue bottle, you can't get it now. Gosh. Cream of magnesia, milk of magnesia, it's not there now. But as soon as I've tried all sorts of things now. Believe me, when you get restless leg syndrome at the best of times, it's an awful thing to have. It's like almost a cramp. You feel this urge, you need to run or stamp your feet. Now, when you've just come home from hospital with a knee replacement and you've got loads of stitches up the middle of your leg and you get this thing that you need to do this, it's not pleasant because the movements are there whether you want them there or not, and it hurt. But within moments of putting on the magnesium oil, I felt this just all the tension went from my back, from my legs. I went to bed that night, no restless legs, and I thought, it's all in the mind. It's just because you've put that stuff on. And I'll be honest, there are occasions, you know, if I'm really, really busy, maybe a couple of days will go by and I'll think, oh, I'll still not put the magnesium oil on today, or I'll do it tomorrow. And I actually find now that when I have a couple of days where things have been a bit erratic and I haven't taken my usual things that I take, I do start to know that I need to start again. I get the symptoms of, hold on a minute, you're not keeping the maintenance going here. And I think that's crucial, really. But I don't know what it is. When I start to feel really, really well, I don't know whether it's, I don't know, you just get a bit cocky with yourself and think, oh, I'm fine, or what it is. But, you know, you tend to find you're moving away from it for a couple of days until, as I say, you start thinking, oh, I'm feeling a bit wretched today. And you think, oh, I've not, you know, so we need to make this effort. You know, this needs to become part of, you know, like having a wash or cleaning your teeth or having a meal. You know, and again, you know, talking of meals, this is something else that a very old lady mentioned to my husband and I just recently. We were talking about back massage and oils and things, and she said, you know, it amazes me the amount of people who will go out and spend £30-40 on a takeaway and a 4-pack or a couple of bottles of wine, but they would never go out and spend that money and take the time to have something nice like a massage on the back. You know, and it really, I thought, wow, yeah, it's so true. We just so neglect ourselves, you know.
You see these women going out and spending 170 quid on a little pot of sort of special serum, when if they rubbed in a bit of magnesium for 10p, they'd get the same benefit and some.
Yeah, this is it. This is what I found with the coconut oil. I mean, my husband, bless him, he spent a fortune last Christmas trying to cheer me up, buy me all these potions from a very famous chemist, a very famous kind of cosmetics brand. You know, the day cream, the night cream, the serum, the this, the that, the rest of it. And as soon as I found out what I found out, you know, why put on your skin what you wouldn't ingest, it was like, I didn't even want to give them away. I just threw the lot in the bin. Someone actually said, well, give it to somebody who can't afford it. And I'm saying, but no, I'm going to poison them. I can't do that. So it just went in the bin. So did the coffee mate. And so did a lot of things. They just go in the bin. As soon as I find out it's crap, it's in the bin. And I don't see it as waste. I see it as, well, that was a lesson learned. You know. And the thing is, what I'm finding now is, you know, it's not a cost a fortune type of thing to do, because you're not getting cravings. If you're actually eating the right things and using supplements that are giving you the nutrients out of your food, you're not spending the same money you would on the crap that you would eat between meals, or that the kids would be asking for between meals. So, you know, I would say to anybody that's on a really tight budget, if you can source the cleanest water you possibly can, use the Celtic salt and the magnesium, if you possibly can add that in as well, you know, that is a damn good start. You know, and if you can build on that, fine. But, you know, everybody's got to start somewhere. You know, there's lots and lots and lots of things I'd like to use, but unfortunately my financial situation wouldn't take me there. But, you know, once you arm yourself with the information, that some of it is pretty cheap, really. I mean, when you look at the fulvic minerals, the amount of servings in that bottle, it's incredible, really, you know, just a few drops.
It's £7.50 a month, so it's not too outrageous.
This is it, you know, and for what it's actually giving you, you know, you're giving your body a chance. There's a lot of toxins out there, and, you know, we need to sort of understand this, that it's not just a case of, you know, eating well because you should eat well. We're up against it, folks. You know, we really are up against it. And I think it's crucial, you know, even if it's just the water, I make sure that you use proper salt. I know it's so tempting, this powdered white glistening stuff in the packets. It's so tempting. And you think, well, you know, does it really make a difference? It's crucial. It's absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
That's all I can, you know, that's all I can say, really.
You were talking about restless leg earlier. I met this woman the other day who heard me saying that magnesium was a cure for restless leg, and she said, "Oh yes, I used to get restless leg." And her husband said, "Yes, you know, she's always kicking me at night." And she turned around to me and said, "Well, actually, I sometimes really feel like kicking him, and I just blame it on the restless leg."
But it's a horrible thing to have, actually. I mean, this didn't used to just happen in bed. This would happen. It could happen anywhere. It could happen when you were, you know, just sitting having a chat with somebody. It could, you know, if you were at work. I mean, when I used to work, I used to have this happen to me at work, and it was awful, because you're trying to shake this off, and I've suffered with that for years. You you know, and looking back, because of all the surgery that I've had over the years and all the antibiotics I've had for all the different infections that I've had, you know, I think the main cause was probably a mashed up immune system. I'm sure, you know, that has got something to do with it. Because now, I mean, back in the summer, I had septic toes. I had toenail surgery. You think I wouldn't have gone back there, but I had to have it done. Unfortunately, the advice I was given was to keep the toenails covered at all times, which I did, and I kind of instinctively knew what was going to happen, and it did. They went septic. They were green. They were bright green. And with colloidal silver, drinking it and also applying it topically and using the helichrysum oil, that was sorted. Yeah, no, and that was without going near any medical professional. That was without going near antibiotics or antiseptics of any sort, just colloidal silver and the helichrysum oil.
And how quickly did the helichrysum oil stop the weeping and
the weeping within 2 or 3 days? I mean, they were very, very bad. They were really in a bad way. They were bright green with all this other ooze coming out of them, very swollen. Within 2 or 3 days, the actual weeping had stopped and they'd crusted over. And I was absolutely amazed that an oil, whether it was the oil or the colloidal silver or a combination of both and the drinking of it, I don't know, but all I know, it was phenomenal to see how they were, and they were throbbing and so painful, and you know, and it was just magical to see this happening before my eyes on a daily basis. It was incredible, really, you know. So, you know, it's not just about coming off all this lot because of arthritis and depression and the like. There's things out there available that can treat all sorts of ailments without having to visit the doctor.
But at the end of the day, we lose our health and we want our health back. And, you know, going to a doctor is fantastic, but they don't study health. And if we want our health back, we need to go to people who can give us health.
Absolutely.
And, so, a bit of shameless advertising on my part now. If you want to give health to anybody you know who's ill, whether it's yourself or a member of family, or you want to give somebody health for Christmas, at Ancient Purity, we're offering 4 hampers, and the most expensive hamper, but it's cheap if you consider this is what's giving health, is £299, and we've put in there pretty much everything that we think is important. There are lots of superfoods which are delicious. There's some raw chocolate, pretty much all of the supplements that Lillian's been talking about, and on top there's our fruit-based vitamin C, vitamin D, really a whole set, and it's amazing value, actually. We're also doing a cut-down version for $199, which has everything that the other one had, but just in smaller quantities. And then we're doing 2 others at £99 each, one which is just food-based, and one which is just supplement-based. And now, if anybody would like to order them, I can tell you that they would normally be on our website, but our website has decided to lock us out, and I know. And we can't put a new page on for our hampers, but if you'd like to ring the office, they would be happy to take your order and explain everything to you. And how to find that number is to go online and look at ancientpurity.com, and it'll be available to you in various other forms, and I'm sure if you're watching this on YouTube, it will be written in the blurb below. Now, you also, Lillian, had the experience of the Pain Genie. Tell us about what happened when you tried that.
Again, I had never heard of anything like this. I went down to Brighton to hear you talk. Richard Cumbers was there doing a talk with the Pain Genie, and I was watching this very intently, and I was kind of, you know, thinking, I wonder, and I thought no more of it. And I'd sat there for a couple of hours listening to various speakers, and when I went to stand up, I couldn't stand up straight. The base of I was in so much pain. Dom, who was there as well, Dominic Spreadlove, he was what's the matter? What's the matter? I said to him, oh my God, I can't stand up. I said, the pain is just unbelievable. And I'd been so glowing that day. And because, you know, standing up, suddenly I'm in pain like this. And I really felt horrible. I was miles from home and I just felt horrible. And he said, come with me. And he took me down this little flight of stairs and he sat me on a chair and he said, just go with the flow. He says, you know, usually I would say this, that and the other. And all I know is he got me to hold my hair up and my chains and he sort of zapped me here and he zapped me there. And then he said, right, stand up. And I was expecting not to be able to stand up properly because of the pain. And I stood up and I was upright and he said, where's your pain now between 1 and 10? And I just had to tell the truth. I said, it's gone. And he just gave me a big smile and I was like, I can't believe this is gone. You know, and it's, you know, I'll be totally honest with you. I did not get any pain there until my husband injured his back, as you know, a few months ago. And because he was totally flat out and could do nothing, he has been my carer for the last 15 years. So suddenly the carer needed a carer. So I became the carer, but within 4 or 5 days, the problem had come back. But armed with my ski-gnar, which we now have because we were so impressed, we bought one. You know, this thing is amazing, absolutely amazing. I've used it on my husband's back as well since his back injury, along with massage with the essential oils. And I got him walking again. I got him mobile in about 2 or 3 days. But when he came back from hospital, he couldn't even walk on a walking frame.
Wow. So,
you know, it's not just me, Clive. You know, it's not just me. It's sorted, you know. So the ski-gnar, yes, it's an amazing piece of kit. It really is. It's, you know, all we need to do now is go on the course because it's all right having the thing, but, you know, there's so much we need to learn. To be able to use it, you know, to our advantage and to its full potential. But unfortunately, we missed a window for the training course.
But you've watched the video.
But we've watched it. Oh, we use it. You know, we are able to use the machine, but we want to go a little bit deeper into it. You know, we're kind of...
You know, one can do the most amazing things with it.
Absolutely.
Reversing blindness being one of them.
This is where we want to be going, you know. You know, I feel now that... if you don't mind me sort of saying this, you know, with the help of UK Column and yourself, because I would, and Louise, of course, I would never, ever have known about any of this. I was computer phobic, you know, before I was poorly. And, you know, I feel now that this is where I need to be, is helping other people. Because, you know, I've been through it. I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be on this lot. And I know how it feels to go through coming off this lot, and now I know how it feels to be minus this lot. And you know, I want to absorb as much information and knowledge as I can. My husband as well, because we feel passionately. This has not just changed everything for me. This has changed everything for my whole family. So we want to try and put something back now and help inform other people and be there for other people that may need help in the future. Because I really do feel that the minerals. You know, the supplements, things like ski-gnar technology, the essential oils, all of these things are paramount for good health. And you know, I would have been the last one. I would have been such a skeptic. But that's me just being honest. I maybe shouldn't have said about it. You know, there was a time where I would have just poo-pooed all of this. And I think you have to go through it to how else can you know? How else can you be informed unless you've gone through it? So I know now that this is right. This is the right way to go.
And how far down the road of cleaning up your diet do you think you've got?
We're doing pretty good now. We never did do McDonald's and the like. We've cut down a lot on meat. You know, I must admit, we do like meat. We're not eating as much meat, and we're sourcing pasture-fed meat now. Yes, it's quite expensive, but if you're, you know, not eating it so often, you know, that it's kind of okay. We're eating a lot of organic eggs, trying to cut down on wheat. I'm using spelt. I've got a sourdough starter now. I'm quite proud of. coming along nicely. Fermenting vegetables. There's lots out there. Dr. John Bergman in America, there's quite a few YouTube videos that he's done on fermenting vegetables, and that's where I got all my information from. And you can make lovely food, you know, and you don't have to live on it. Just make it part of, you know. That's my theory anyway. I don't feel it's realistic to say you can just change everything overnight. I tried to in one weekend when I first went shopping. And I just walked in the supermarket and just had the biggest panic attack of all time, because it was just boxes with pretty colours on, full of poison, you know. So now I've chilled out and I think, hey, you know, just take it easy and be sensible. And that's kind of, you know, that's the way we're going.
Right, brilliant. Thank you, Lillian.
Thank you, Clive. Thanks for the opportunity to let everybody know.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Now, I'm giving a couple of talks in the next few days. On Sunday, I'm at the Friends Meeting House in Redlands in Bristol at 3 p.m, speaking for the Positive Living Group. And on Tuesday next week, I'm at the October Gallery in London at 7:30. And all the details will be up on for you to see in the YouTube blurb, and I hope on the UK column website. They would be on Ancient Purity's website if we had control of it today. Now, I'd like to bring your attention to a few pieces of work that I've been doing, putting together a book, and if I can affect it to come onto the screen, Mike. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. I thought I'd start with defining or letting the World Health Organization define health. So in 1948, the World Health Organization said that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And I find that to be a fascinating and I think fairly correct definition of what health is. Now, below that is an article relating to calcium. Now, the biggest selling supplements on the planet, the biggest selling is calcium supplements. Now, how many of us need calcium supplements? I would say almost zero. I don't think. Probably 99.5% of people do not need calcium. They probably need magnesium and other minerals. And so this is from a very respected journal, Nutrients, where a meta-analysis looking at calcium supplementation from many trials concludes that they increase the risk of heart attack by 27 to 31% and increase the risk of stroke by 12 to 20%. This is calcium, and everybody's advising to take calcium. I don't think you should do it. This is the address of Sunday's meeting in Bristol. You might be able to freeze that later and have a look at it. It's called Super Health and the End of Disease. Now, this is from the New England Journal of Medicine, and it says that a cancer diagnosis increases the risk of a heart attack 26-fold. So basically, just the shock of being told you've got cancer increases your risk of heart attack by 26 times. Now, they looked at data of 6 million people to get this. Now, the rate of suicide went up 16 times, as one might imagine, with news like that. And the risk of heart-related deaths 26.9 times higher in the first week. Now, another silent killer is people who don't like to talk about things. It says here, a study in the US by experts at Harvard and the University of Rochester shows that the risk of premature death from all causes increases by 35% among those people who fail to say how they feel. So it is very, very clear that you need to speak your mind and be honest and share what you're finding. It goes on to say, when researchers looked at specific causes of death, they discovered that the risks increased by 47% for heart disease and by 70% for cancer. So really very, very significant. Now, talking of cancer, in Nature, another very prestigious journal in 2012, two researchers, Glenn Bagley and Lee Ellis, double-checked the results of 53 landmark cancer studies, and they were only able to reproduce 11% of them. Now that's fairly stunning. 89% couldn't be repeated. The British Medical Journal seems to do things slightly better in England, has concluded that only about 12% of all medical treatments have adequate evidence to demonstrate that they actually work. So when you next are prescribed something, are you in the lucky 88% or the unlucky 80%? Well, where are you? Now, GMO foods, they're trying to foist them on us. Non-GMO corn contains, according to this report, 437 times more calcium and 56 times more magnesium and 7 times more manganese than GMO corn. And bear in mind, in relation to what we were talking about earlier with calcium, there are two types of calcium. There's the calcium supplements, which are often calcium carbonate, which is just chalk, or there's calcium from vegetables, and we can have as much of that type of calcium as we like. The GMO corn, this is in America, was found to contain 13 parts per million of glyphosate, where the legal minimum is 0.1 parts per million. GMO corn has 200 times more formaldehyde than it ought to. These things are desperately toxic and desperately dangerous. The next piece of research, school-aged children who drank raw milk were 41% less likely to develop asthma and 50% less likely to develop hay fever than their friends who drank pasteurized milk. Now, imagine somebody's having an asthma attack right there and then. What can you do to stop it? You can stop it pretty much instantly by giving them a large glass of water with a big sprinkling of Celtic salt on, or get them to drink some water and put some Celtic salt on their tongue, and that you'll find that'll stop an asthma attack in pretty much every case. Now, I try to get the information from the most prestigious sources, either the British Medical Journal or Nature or the Journal of the American Medical Association. Here's one from JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. An astonishing 40 to 60% of sudden deaths are from heart attacks, which may occur in the complete absence of a prior artery blockage. They found that a low-salt diet increases the death rate by over 500%. Now, this is the main journal for American doctors explaining how a low-salt diet is killing people. Has the advice on salt changed? I don't think so. Dr. Sarah Myhill states, I've never had a patient die following a myocardial infarction, a heart attack, when treated with intravenous magnesium. Dr. Carolyn Dean has also found the same, that patients essentially do not die if they're given intravenous magnesium. So magnesium, whether you take it topically or intravenously, is still a real lifesaver. Now here's the British Medical Journal from 1960, so they've known about this for a while, about magnesium. Over 100 patients suffering from coronary heart disease were treated with intramuscular, that's injected magnesium sulfate, with only one death, compared to the finding of the previous year, when of 196 cases admitted and treated with routine anticoagulants, 60 died. So that's 60 deaths as opposed to one changing anticoagulants for magnesium. Another one, researchers tracked nearly 60,000 Japanese people, the ages of 40 to 79, for 15 years, and found that those with the highest levels of magnesium had half the risk of death from heart disease. Other studies have found similar results, including one that found women with high dietary intake of magnesium have 34% lower risk of sudden cardiac death, and women with high plasma magnesium levels had 77% lower risk of death. I could explain about cancer in Egypt. This current slide is basically explaining that in Egypt they only got 1/10 of the cancer rate of Europe, and the people eating the traditional diet were only getting 100th of the cancer rate. What was it at the end of the day? It was magnesium. 3 grams of fish oil a day reduce heart problems by 50% or more. Norwegian study, 68,000 women that had cancer, took daily cod liver oils supplements, reducing their mortality by 25% for cancer, 45% for lung cancer, increasing the survival of all the patients with solid tumours. The University of Vienna was looking at fish oil and omega-3 formulations for teenagers at risk of psychosis. 11 out of 40 high-risk teens who had taken a placebo for 12 weeks developed clinical psychosis within a year, but only 2 out of 41 high-risk teenagers who took the omega-3 succumbed to psychosis. So clearly it's not just the heart, cancer and the brain, but we all need a good quantity of omega-3 oils. Fish oils are fine, assuming they're high quality. I personally prefer hemp seed and hemp oils, but I like to eat lots of oily fish, which I certainly recommend. Vitamin C. There's almost no more important.
So important.
It's critical. You know, if you want to see well, if you want your heart to function well, if you want your whole body to be resistant to disease, vitamin C is number one, and we have to get it from outside. The body can't make it. We have to either eat it or supplement. So large study shows that those with the highest levels of vitamin C live twice as long as those with the lowest levels. This is from Cambridge School of Clinical Medicine. 19,496 men and women from 45 to 79. They're followed for 4 years. Overall, those with the blood levels of vitamin C ranging in the top 20% were 50% less likely to die from all causes than those in the lowest 20%. And these figures are really significant. Here's another one, vitamin K2. Now, this is something that some people supplement with. I eat unpasteurized dairy, particularly unpasteurized butter, which is super rich in K2. And I think butter that's unpasteurized is extremely healthy.
The thing is, Clive, it's very difficult. If you don't mind me saying, it's very difficult to source. The only place I know of is Waitrose, and my nearest Waitrose is about 40 miles from me now.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one.
Well, it lasts about a month in the fridge.
Yeah.
And yes,
yeah.
Waitrose is the only place I know to get it from. I'm sure there are a few farms who would sell it at the gate. So what's the point of taking K2? Well, according to this study, people who are taking K2 daily lived 7 years longer than those getting a smaller amount. So that's 45 micrograms as opposed to 12 micrograms. You get 45 easily in a small portion of butter. Another study, 4,600 Dutch men, 51% lower risk from heart attacks and 26% lower risk of death. And that's from eating eggs, meat, dairy. It's ridiculous. And you can also get it in fermented foods as well. Now, just to go against the grain, this is also from the Journal of the American Medical Association. Vegetarian diet can prevent 97% of coronary occlusions. Now, not everything that you're going to hear is going to gel with the last thing that you're going to hear. And one really has to pick through this stuff with great care. As Mark Twain said, be careful what you read in health books because a misprint might kill you. And so with all this information, check it out for yourself. And it's all there on Google.
Yeah.
A note here, I put your bones are 50% water. So if you're thirsty, drink some water. Now here's a great one, homeopathy, the Cuba experiment. The Cuban counterpart of the NHS just did the largest experiment in homeopathic history. 2.5 million people in mass homeopathic vaccination. And the aim was to overcome leptospirosis, which is rampant in Cuba. It says the epidemic sickens and kills by causing meningitis, heart and multiple organ failure. The study turned out to be a stunning success with no death and practically no illness. So, remember the Queen uses homeopathy. Her racehorses, which win regularly, are treated homeopathically. Vitamin B6, 400,000 participants find that those with the higher blood level of vitamin B6, folic acid and essential amino acid methionine cut their risk of lung cancer by 2/3. And this is Journal of the American Medical Association again. So let's just look at that again. B6, folic acid. You don't want a folic acid supplement. You can get folates in green leafy vegetables. If you need a supplement, get a folate supplement. And the amino acid methionine is, I looked it up, it's highest in eggs, fish, meat, and according to my book, elk in particular. And I know that my butcher is looking for elk right now. Spinach, mushroom, asparagus, beans, and broccoli for those of you who don't want to eat the meat. Now, you were mentioning depression, right? How about this?
Vitamin D, yeah.
Low vitamin D increases depression risk by 85%. Scientists recently analysed vitamin D levels for 8,000 young men and women between 15 and 39. They found that volunteers deficient in vitamin D were 85% more likely to have depression than compared to volunteers with adequate levels. It's astounding. Let's look at a few more.
Can I just say again, excuse me butting in, but I think, when I came off the antidepressants, as I said before, when I received my parcel from Ancient Purity, that's when I started to swap like for like. And I honestly feel that the reason I felt so well so quickly was the vitamin D3, because the time of year when this took place was March. The weather wasn't that brilliant. There wasn't that much sunshine. And I went from being very, very low to, feeling terrific. Almost to the, that feel-good factor you get when it's been a really dull, miserable day. And then all of a sudden, right at the end, the sun comes out and you get that, and I honestly, I think it's crucial, vitamin D. There is definitely a connection, because the more depressed I got, I was spending more and more time indoors. I was getting no sunshine whatsoever.
It's a vicious cycle. I noticed you said you were in bed from something like October to January, which are going to be some of the dark months.
Absolutely.
Probably just when you were running out of vitamin D.
Absolutely. And then suddenly, I stopped with the antidepressants and then start with the vitamin D3, the gel caps. And, it was just amazing. I mean, I honestly expected that after 20 years there would be some kind of really bad effect to go through, but no, the transition was fine. I just got better. It was marvellous. So yeah, vitamin D3.
I think 50,000 IUs of vitamin D at one go, where you take 10,000 international unit little capsules, break them open, suck the oil out, and just throw the capsules away. And a lot of people feel better very, very quickly, within an hour or something. So the next study that I was looking at is again from Harvard, a 20-year study, 79,000 men. Those that ate 2 to 3 portions of cooked tomatoes a week had 40 to 50% less prostate cancer. So eat cooked tomatoes. Tomatoes contain lycopene. 2004, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Women with the highest levels of lycopene in their blood reduced their risk of heart disease by 50%. This is big stuff with just tomatoes.
I know.
And I know. Journal of American Clinical Nutrition again, following 1,500 men and women for 4 years, found that those who consumed the highest levels of omega-3s had the strongest bones. Well, not surprising. Sunshine or vitamin D. Let's look at the figures here. This is research by the Creighton University of Medicine in Nebraska, revealed supplementing with vitamin D and calcium can reduce your risk of cancer by an astonishing 77%, they found. This includes breast cancer, colon cancer, skin cancer, other forms of cancer. This research shows strong evidence that vitamin D is the single most effective medicine against cancer, far outpacing the benefits of any cancer drug known to modern science. So a study of 2009, 70% of Caucasians, 90% of Hispanics, and 97% of African Americans in America had insufficient levels of vitamin D. And I think that probably goes for England just as well. So that's probably over 1 billion people worldwide low on vitamin D. Swedish study in 1993, 42,000 women, showed that those under the age of 55 who received regular premenopausal mammography experienced a 29% greater risk of dying from breast cancer. So, and there have been so many studies showing the dangers of mammograms. It's, a pretty dangerous thing to get that much X-rays. You're getting hundreds of times more X-rays.
It's painful as well, you know. I had to have it done twice in one day, which was terrifying, to have to be called back in instead of bye-bye. Can you please come back through? We need to do this again. And I was scared. I was really scared, you know. And now I know what I know. I have had 2 letters. You know, you haven't responded, and I'm not going to respond because I don't need one. I'm not going to get cancer. I'm doing the right thing.
So, I think it's true to say that a diagnosis of things can be very, very useful. But if I was concerned that I might have cancer, what I'd want to do is have thermography done, which is where they use infrared. So it's non-invasive, just an infrared camera. This technology that's been around for decades, and thermography is available. It's very inexpensive, non-invasive, and you see, when they're looking for cancer with X-rays, you can't see cancer with an X-ray. They're looking for other signs that might indicate cancer, so it's by no means absolutely definitive. But with thermography, it's much more accurate. You can detect cancers many, many years earlier with thermography when they're much, much smaller, because thermography works on heat. So if you've got a cancer, it shows. And but thermography is not available in the NHS. The only reason I can assume that it is that X-rays and scans in general involve high-tech, high-cost equipment and constant reuse of radioactive material and so on, whereas thermography uses no materials. It's just a camera and a screen, and it's almost cost-free, which unfortunately doesn't suit the business model of running pharmaceutical industries. Now,
it's quite a cesspit we're living in, isn't it?
Well, I'm sure people are doing the best they can with the information they have, as you were saying earlier. Now, the next article I'd like to bring your attention to is the work done by the University of New South Wales and many other people around the world now. This is a piece from Italy, the University of Modena. Dozens of people whose eyes were severely damaged in chemical accidents have had their sight restored with transplants of their own stem cells. Researchers say the technique returned normal vision to nearly 100 people. They said one of the patients could see clearly for the first time in more than 60 years. They were incredibly happy. Some said it was a miracle. And how they're doing it is just amazing. What they're doing is, let's say somebody's been splashed with acid in one eye, the cornea has gone blind, gone opaque. They take some stem cells from the tears of the good eye, put them in a petri dish for 3 weeks, culture them, get a dehydrated soft contact lens, put the contact lens in the stem cells, which absorb the liquid of the stem cells, put them on the blind eye, and within 3 weeks it's reseeded the eye with stem cells and people are seeing again.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing, and they're doing it with the retina by injecting stem cells into the back of the eye as well. Amazing stuff is going on, absolutely amazing.
So it's not all doom and gloom, is it?
No, not at all.
No.
There's so much good news out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, even the good news is even coming from the most surprising sources. You know, one of my favourites is Lockheed Martin, the incredibly nasty armaments company, who have announced recently they've developed this one-celled membrane which will filter seawater. So the answer to the world's water shortage appears to be solved by Lockheed Martin, because they can now simply filter seawater and get fresh drinking water out, and presumably mine the minerals at the other end and sell them as supplements. So the next little piece is from the University of California. They say that they've announced a discovery for a cure for Alzheimer's. It's vitamin B3, and they're announcing the non-flush version, which is easier to use. And the non-flush version is available under several names: niacinamide or nicotinamide. And anybody interested in vitamin B3, niacin, will also be interested to learn that it was proven by Dr. Abraham Hoffer, a psychiatrist in Canada, that not only was it effectively pretty much curing schizophrenia and all the mental issues, but it was also, as pure niacin, the flushing variety, along with vitamin C, being a cure for cholesterol, high cholesterol. And of course, cholesterol isn't a problem in itself. It's showing that cholesterol is a bandage effectively made by the liver to repair damage to, say, the coronary artery through mild scurvy, through lack of vitamin C, possibly the lack of B vitamins, lack of magnesium, and so forth. But to think of cholesterol as a bad thing, it's not. It's like shooting the messenger. The cholesterol is actually there to help. Next piece of information, a study of pregnant American women found that 78% had nutritional deficiencies, and those nutritional deficiencies are likely to persist over generations. So it's very important prior to conception to really look very closely at getting a good diet and everything you need to be well. Next piece from the National Academy of Sciences, low levels of vitamin C can lead to genetic damage in sperm. Vitamin C comes up over and over again. A few quotes that I rather like and might amuse you, just to put on a lighter note. This is by Anton Chekhov, who was a doctor. He said, doctors are the same as lawyers. The only difference is that doctors merely rob you, whereas doctors rob you and kill you too. Molière, in his book A Physician in Spite of Himself, in 1664, wrote, I find medicine the best of all trades, because whether you do any good or not, you still get your money. Maimonides said the physician should treat the disease. The physician should not treat the disease, but the patient who is suffering from it. And Hippocrates, of course, famously said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And perhaps the most important quote ever made with regards to health is, you are what you eat. Your brain is yesterday's lunch. And if you had a rubbish lunch, well... Now, there is a lot of radiation around from Chernobyl after all these years, and radiation coming out of Fukushima, clearly. So I want to tell you a little bit about what happened in Chernobyl, and I have an article here which is entitled Iodine Cures the Thyroid. It says, within hours of the onset of the Chernobyl disaster, Polish authorities acted to get iodine solutions, potassium and sodium iodide tablets, even seaweed tablets and capsules into as many of their citizens as possible to protect them from the nearby huge amounts of iodine-131 coming their way. And radioactive iodine is coming our way from Fukushima. Over the intervening 20 years, the Polish people treated with iodine-127 have almost 1,000 times less thyroid disease than neighbouring countries even farther from Poland than the Chernobyl disaster site. And I can't say this enough, iodine is vital. It's vital to your mental health, it's vital to your mental alertness, vital to memory. It's in every single cell of your body. It's vital to your hormones. It's particularly vital to children. You know, our IQ, the IQ of your children depends on their iodine levels. It is super important, and iodine's getting depleted by the chlorine and the fluoride and the bromines that we're coming up against, along with the radioactive iodine that's in the air. Now, we'll go through these quickly because we're running out of time. Do you want more energy? Well, maybe astaxanthin is the answer. Swedish study in 1998. Male students, 17 to 19, who took 4 milligrams per day of astaxanthin for 6 months, improved their strength and endurance by 62%. I mean, this is pretty incredible. Amazing. It's amazing. Now, I take astaxanthin, and I take it for my eyes. I think it's vital for eye health, along with vitamin C. And it has all sorts of interesting side effects. If you want to go in the sunshine and get more sun than you would be able to normally, if you take a gram of vitamin C every hour, you'll be able to get massive more sunshine. But taking astaxanthin 3 weeks before you go on holiday, according to Dr. Mercola, you can double the amount of sunshine that you can take. Astaxanthin is one of the most researched of all the sort of newer supplements, and very, very safe, very, very important.
It's on my Christmas list now.
The next one I'd like to mention is goji berries. Many people think it's the most nutritionally dense fruit of all. And again, I take goji berries again for my eyesight. I think very, very important. It contains all the amino acids. It contains pretty much all the vitamins, but not vitamin C, contrary to what some people believe. It's got many of the trace minerals, polysaccharides. It's got a host of benefits. The interesting one, perhaps, for some people is sexual potency. People find is increased, and 67% increase in T cells from what I'm looking at here. Appetite improved in 95% of patients. 95% of patients slept better. 35% of patients partially recovered their sexual functions. This is goji berries. Very important with goji berries to look for an organic source that you can trust. And the price difference between inorganic and organic goji berries is huge.
Yeah,
I was in the shop today, and they're about £13 or something for a kilo of inorganic ones. And I know the organic ones we charge are something like 25 or 30. So there really is a difference, but they're really worth it. Very important indeed. The next piece of information is entitled "Virtually Eliminate Your Risk of Sudden Death from Heart Attack." This is from the nurses study. I don't know if you've heard of the nurses study. It's been huge, going on for about 20 years in America. At the moment, they've got 81,722 women in the nurses study. And they based their analysis on certain risk factors. Smoking, keeping your body mass index low, 30 minutes exercise a day, and the top 40%, I'm not getting this right at all. Let's just look at this again. Compared to women with zero low-risk factors, just maintaining one low-risk factor cuts your risk of dying by 46%. So the risk factors are you don't want to smoke, you don't want to get too fat, you want to do at least 30 minutes exercise a day, and you want to eat a sort of Mediterranean-type diet. If you adhere to 2 factors, you'll successfully cut your risk by 59%. If you make 3, you cut your risk by 67%, and so on. It's not difficult to be healthy. It really isn't. There are just a few real keys to it. You know, vitamin D, vitamin C, the trace minerals, magnesium, little bit of exercise. Just a bit of walking is better than statins. Sunshine. Sunshine halves the rate of breast cancer. Researchers from the French equivalent to the National Institute of Health in America discovered that women living in the areas which receive more sunshine had only about half the risk of breast cancer of women who made their homes in areas with less sun. Even a single carrot a day reduces the risk of macular degeneration, that's the most common form of eye disease, by 40%. Just 1 carrot a day. And night blindness is a vitamin A deficiency. Yeah, carrots. Now, here's a good one. Maybe you might want to put this one up on the screen. More sex and live longer. A study published in 1997 of roughly 1,000 middle-aged men over the course of a decade showed men who reported the highest frequency of orgasm experienced half the death rate. I think that's quite good. Other studies have correlated frequency of sex with an improved sense of smell, which I found interesting. Reduced risk of heart disease, weight loss and overall fitness, so that's not surprising. Reduced depression, that's not surprising either. Pain relief, less frequent colds and flus. Better bladder control. So more orgasms, I think, is clearly
the way to go. Yeah.
Now, if you're going to do that, you're going to need vitamin C. From the Biological Psychiatry Journal, high dose ascorbic acid, which is the cheap version of vitamin C, increases intercourse frequency and improves mood. A randomized, controlled clinical trial shows. I won't go into that one, but it's important. Vitamin D lowers heart risk by 47%, according to the American College of Cardiology. Vitamin D again. Let's go on to the next one. Mushrooms. In the Baltimore study, men with the lowest blood selenium levels were 4 to 5 times more likely to have prostate cancer compared with those with the highest selenium levels. So how do you get selenium? Because it is vital, particularly to protect yourself in that way. Mushrooms. Mushrooms are absolutely key to it. Selenium's available in various other things. It's in yeast products, so it's in nutritional yeast. It's in a number of food items. Brazil nuts, absolute favourite. I think Brazil nuts has the highest selenium of pretty much anything. But in a really good multi-mineral supplement, like the one we recommend, there's selenium in there. Very, very important. Now, we've discussed iodine a bit, and it's very interesting to see where the UK stacks up against the world in iodine deficiency. So, the bottom of the list, Pakistan, Ethiopia, Sudan, Russian Federation, Afghanistan, all pretty third world, Angola, United Kingdom, Mozambique and Ghana. I bet you weren't expecting to be between Angola and Mozambique. So a national study, UK study, 2/3 of schoolgirls have low iodine intake. And that means low IQ. It means trouble for their babies. It's huge. It's huge. Everybody needs iodine, and Lugol's iodine is so cheap. A maintenance dose of Lugol's iodine is less than £1 a month. Less than £1 a month. There's no excuse not to do it. Right. British Medical Journal, recent study published in the BMJ tells about for every heart attack prevented by a statin drug, 2 or more people suffered liver damage, kidney failure, cataracts, or extreme muscle weakness as a result of taking a statin drug. In other words, statin drugs harm more people than they help. Julia Hipsley Cox and Carle Coupland led the study which examined the data of 2 million patients, including 225,000 patients who were new statin drug users. They found that for every 10,000 women being treated with statins, there were only 271 fewer cases of heart disease. 10,000 women, 271 fewer cases of heart disease. But at the same time, the statin drugs in these women caused 74 cases of liver damage, 23 cases of acute kidney failure, 39 cases of extreme muscle weakness, and 307 cases of cataracts. In other words, the statins helped 271 people and harmed 443. As we've mentioned before on this program, the leader of one of the biggest statin studies said that mild walking was better than statins. Another one, coriander. Report from the Heart Disease Foundation, president of the International College of Acupuncture in New York, reported that after finding he had been heavily exposed to mercury, he accidentally discovered that when coriander is taken in slightly cooked form, it causes a massive secretion of mercury from the urine. Dr. Klinghardt also recommends coriander as the best means to remove mercury from the brain. His clinical research has found that 5 grams, which is a teaspoonful, is all that's needed as a minimum dose to remove mercury. And any of you who've had or have mercury fillings, clearly a lot of coriander mildly cooked is a very, very, very good idea. Now I'm just rushing through a few of these because we're running out of time. Any children on a drug called Epilim, it's for epilepsy, Epilim. Researchers are saying that 48,000 children born to mothers in the UK have taken the Epilim drug since it was introduced in 1973. 47%, that's 19,200 of those out of 48,000, have developed physical or mental problems. You want to be really careful with some of these drugs. Right, white rice and diabetes. Health researchers have said this month they found a troubling link between a high consumption of white rice and type 2 diabetes. What we found is white rice is likely to increase the risk of type 2 diabetes. In the studies carried out in China and Japan, those who ate the most rice were 55% more likely to develop the disease than those who ate the least. And I think it's true to say that all grains have increased risk of giving you diabetes. The next one, hidden toxicity. Research shows that you have a 2.5% chance of selecting a nutritional product in the marketplace that is both non-toxic and effective. In other words, you've got a 97.5% chance of selecting a nutritional product in the shop that's either toxic or doesn't work. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is again in the Journal of the American Nutraceutical Association. Now, how can this be possible? Well, it's possible because they are making 98% of all the vitamin C supplements these days with genetically modified corn as the base. They are irradiating herbs. They're doing all sorts of things to make what would be effective supplements ineffective. And again, it's knowing the source. Very important, wherever you're buying your nutritional supplements, to be sure you're buying from a company who's honest and is telling you the truth. Because if they're not organic, for example, you're going to have algicides and fungicides and pesticides and every type of side you can possibly think of, and none of them are on your side. Good news, pomegranates, effectively reversing atherosclerosis by 39% within 1 year. I suspect it's from the vitamins and minerals, amongst other things. So if your arteries are blocked at all, pomegranates would be the food to eat. Also getting blood pressure levels to normalize. Now here's a really interesting one about blood pressure levels. Okay, systolic blood pressure at admission, clinical characteristics and outcomes in patients hospitalized with acute heart failure. So this is about your blood pressure and how you survive acute heart failure. Just have a listen to this. Sounds a bit complicated, and I'll try and make it as simple as possible. The odds of in-hospital death increased 21% for each 10 millimole decrease below 160. Now, you go to your doctor, he would say your systolic level should be about 130. But it turns out that if it's higher than that, you survive heart failure better. This is completely at odds with what doctors are taught and what we're told, but this is the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2006, and it's been reported in many trials since then. Just maybe your body knows what it's doing. The idea that all our bodies, no matter whether we're the size of a sumo wrestler or the size of a midget, are meant to have the same blood pressure is...
That's mad.
It can't be right.
No.
Right. The National Cancer Institute found that individuals who ate the most red onions, garlic, chives and leeks had nearly 50% lower cancer risk than those who ate the least. This is the largest scale epidemiological women's study. Looked at garlic consumption in 41,000 middle-aged women. Results showed that women who regularly consumed garlic had 35% risk of developing colon cancer. Now, if you like barbecues, try not to overcook it. The University of Maryland found that cooking well done or burning meat with barbecues increases breast cancer by 462%. Is the health problem in your mouth? Turns out that periodontal disease, gum disease in your mouth, increases the risk of pancreatic cancer by 64%. So what do you want to do about that? Well, I'd recommend gargling with colloidal silver as one way to rid yourself of periodontal disease for many people. Men with periodontitis, 72% greater risk of coronary heart disease. Gingivitis, it turns out from this test, gum disease, was reduced, was associated with a 40% increased risk for men. How do you get rid of it? Swirl your mouth around with bicarb. Do pretty well. I found a small quote which I like from Bob Marley. Some people feel the rain while others just get wet. The Cancer Registry of Norway measured vitamin D levels of 658 patients. They basically found that the people with the highest vitamin D, as opposed to people with the lowest level of vitamin D, people at the lowest level had 2.5 more times a risk of dying. Well, here's one for you, fibromyalgia. Using D-ribose, which is often used to boost heart energy. D-ribose gave people with fibromyalgia 61% increase in energy, 37% increase in well-being, 29% improvement in sleep, 30% improvement in mental clarity, 15% decrease in pain. D-ribose, how much does it cost? Not very much at all. And finally, the last one, I think, quote by Henry Ford, why use up the forests, which were centuries in the making, and the mines, which required ages to lay down, if we can get the equivalent of a forest and the equivalent of mineral production in the annual growth of hemp fields? Henry Ford, as you may know, made a hemp car in the 30s. Never rusted. Very, very tough.
This is one of the strongest materials there is, isn't it?
Well, it is. Money's still made from hemp. Flags are made from hemp, and you can't tie up a heavy ocean liner with any other type of rope, a hemp rope. Levi's were made of hemp originally. Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the show, and thank you very much, Lillian, for coming along and sharing your story. And so the wheelchair days are gone. You don't want your wheelchair back now?
No, I won't be going back in that again. Absolutely not. And I'm hoping to be ditching the stick soon as well.
Good.
Yeah, it's I still, it was a long time using that stick, and what I'm afraid of is maybe just thinking, I don't need it now, and then bang, going over, and then I'm going to knock myself back months. So for now, but I'm kind of looking, turn of the year, then I'm going to start, walking around without it a little, see how I go. And because, I don't want to stay in the same frame now. I want to keep moving forward. Yeah,
your body hasn't forgotten how to repair itself.
It just
absolutely.
Needs all the tools. Yeah. So I'm optimistic. I'm going to have a pretty good future. Yeah. And thank you, all of you, for the opportunity to let me come and do this and let people know that we have got an alternative.
Brilliant.
So
well, thank you. Thank you all very much for viewing. Thank you, Mike Robinson, for doing another fabulous job with all the production work. And thank you very much all for watching, and I hope to see you next week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Welcome to the Health Revolution, and tonight I'm very pleased to be joined by Lillian, who has a very interesting story to tell. And without further ado, and me spoiling the story, I'm going to go straight to Lillian. Tell us, Lillian, when did you first realise that your health wasn't performing as well as it used to?
I would say really I'd been on the largest amount of medication I came to. It took, I would say, maybe just under a year before I actually started to feel there's something radically wrong here. I'm actually, not getting better. It's not keeping my pain levels under control. And then everything else started to happen where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, all sorts of problems.
What was the first reason you went to a doctor initially?
Basically, it was pain. I mean, all this really it goes way back to when I was around 17. I had a problem with my left knee. I was running for a bus, and the feeling I got was like an elastic band had gone twang in my knee, and it kind of felt there was no feeling around it. And I went to the hospital to the ward. I don't know. So far, it's okay. I've had something injected into it, bone metabolic protein. So far, it's working okay. But the problem is that in all the time it's taken to get this sorted, the impact I feel that it had on the rest of my body is what brought me to where I was needing both knees replaced. I've had both knees replaced. The first one was about 10 years ago, so that's coming up for replacement. The last one I had was last year. That was on my right knee. But I'm looking now more towards the nutrition and the supplements I'm taking, that maybe at some point I'll be able to say, well, I don't actually need that right hip replacement that they're talking about now. And this is the impact of walking on crutches for 17 months. I am absolutely positive, because you're not holding yourself properly. I knew this, and I couldn't stand straight. And I just gradually went downhill from then on. I wasn't getting out and about. I became even more depressed. I'd been on antidepressants since 1993. Kept wondering, why am I not feeling any better? And in actual fact, I'm feeling worse. And then we kind of thought, well, maybe it's because if you weren't on the antidepressants, you'd be a lot worse. So just be thankful for the fact you don't feel as bad as you could feel. That was the kind of logic. But I must say that very, very quickly, from beginning to actually cut down the dose of the antidepressant alone, I found the clarity that I got back in my head was just tremendous. I felt part of the family again. I was making decisions for myself. I was, I don't know, I just felt myself getting the will to live back again. And it's incredible. And I've gradually, over the months, I've been cutting down bit by bit, and I've now got to a point where I'm only on one drug, and I'm cutting that down bit by bit. This is a fentanyl patch that's it's an opiate. I think it's usually given to cancer patients, and I'm supposed to be on 125 micrograms an hour, and I've got that down to about 70 micrograms an hour. I mean, I'm not saying I'm always pain-free and that I've had a miraculous cure, but from where I was in March to where I am today, if this is the best I ever got, I'd be happy as Larry. I really would, because this is phenomenal.
So how bad did it get? How desperate were you feeling?
I was feeling that desperate that when it used to get light in the morning, I was at a stage where I was weeping, because here was another day and I just had enough, basically. When you become that detached from what's going on around you, your family, you're supposed to be the matriarch of the family, and you're having no involvement whatsoever. You can see the strain you're putting on the rest of the family. You can see the effect all this is having. And then the thoughts along the lines of, they would be far better off without me in the equation, because I am this problem, I am that problem. And it doesn't take long, really, before, you really start to become convinced that this is actually just let it happen. And as I say, I honestly feel that what done it for me was the antidepressant. I lost that mindset as soon as I came off that antidepressant. I lost that mindset. And I would almost say, to the extent where I think that was almost making me have suicidal tendencies. And that's quite a strong statement to make. But I feel that I have the right to make that statement because, you know, I haven't gone through medical school and I haven't written papers, and I'm just a mother and a grandmother that's physically been through the mill, and I've come round through it the other side, and I think I'm well justified to actually say what I think has been the cause and the effect of what I've been through.
So you were taking quite a few medications,
I was taking a lot of medications.
Why didn't you show us what you were taking?
You know, as I did say earlier, each time I look in this bag, it's shocking to think that I used to ingest this on a monthly basis.
So there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've got bottles of Oromorph here. This is liquid morphine, 10 milligrams in a 5 ml spoonful. I mean, in the end, I was actually just, well, to be honest with you, when I had this knee replaced, I was told that I'd been discharged, and because I was waiting for an ambulance, I was entitled to no more medication from them. And they'd given me a bag to take home, as they do. And I found myself sitting on my hospital bed with a bottle of this open, just glugging it out the bottle because there was no syringe in there to squib it into your mouth. And the nurses were quite happily just walking past watching me do this. That's another story. But I mean, you know, some of these drugs were given to me because of the side effects of some of the other drugs that I was on. One of these amongst here is actually a drug that dries up all the moisture, because I happened to mention that I was getting up maybe 4 or 5 times in the night to go for a wee. That's all I said. And it's, we've got something that can sort that. Right. And yes, it worked. But then I found that if I was talking to anybody, that my mouth would just dry up. My eyes were dry. My nose was dry. And then I think, now I know what I know. What the hell was that doing to my brain? So I kind of think, yeah, looking back, you look at all this stuff, it's, I mean, this one here, gabapentin, this originally was for people with epileptic fits, and now they give it to people with fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia, again, what is fibromyalgia? Where the hell did that come from? That wasn't around when I was in my teens.
Well, you know, fibromyalgia is touted as if it were a disease,
yeah.
But fibromyalgia means multiple muscle pains.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's not something you catch.
No, this is it. But you see, all along, all I ever wanted was someone to find out what was causing my pain. But all anybody ever seemed to want to do was give me something to help the pain. And, you know, I've in one particular practice, you know, I've had one doctor who said to me that this stuff, when I explained to him that after 3 or 4 days, what was a kind of walking casualty, nobody ever really got to the bottom of it. It did, it kind of, you know, wore off after a few months and then came back again when I was a bit older and pregnant, obviously, you know, carrying the extra weight of a baby. But I was told when I was about 22 that there was actually no cartilage left in my left knee. I was put on a drug called Indocid. I gave that maybe 2 or 3 months and I didn't feel any difference whatsoever. Then they put me on an additional drug to that. I can't remember the name of it, similar to today's Voltarol. Again, no difference, so I stopped taking that. And then unfortunately, it was around about, I think I was about 40, and I was dusting and I fell off a chair, and I heard both cracks. I broke 2 metatarsals, 3rd and 4th, in my right foot. Cut a long story short, was put into plaster, went back to have it removed 3 weeks later to have a new plaster on. But I was told that it was fine and I could go, and the guy didn't seem able to put other than that into a sentence. You are fine, you can go. And I said, but I'm in pain, I can't put my foot on the floor. You know, look at the sweat. You're fine, you can go. So off I trotted. Several times I went to the doctor and kept saying, look, every time I put my foot to the floor, I'm in agony. And I kept being told it would settle down in time. These things take time. And I actually, at one time, I was in Edinburgh and we walked the whole length of Princes Street and went in every shoe shop, and I could not find a pair of anything, any sort of footwear that would fit over my right foot. Eventually, they decided that, yes, we'll have it x-rayed, and they found that for 3 years I'd been walking around on one of the metatarsals that hadn't healed. I've actually had 2 attempts with bone grafts from my hip to put that right. Both times it failed. They've done it now a 3rd time.